that. All right, so again, thank you all for joining us. We're here for a faculty panel, and I want to start by doing some introductions of our faculty panelists. So we're going to just go down the line, and then our final panelist in alphabetical order is online. So we'll go to you last, Tina. Okay. So I'm just asking folks to tell us your name, your role, and tell us when you came to UNLV.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Davidson. I'm the Associate Vice President for Wellness. That's the Student Wellness Unit, in case you're wondering, which is our health center, counseling center. It also includes the Gene Nightage Care Center. It includes the Disability Resource Center and Student Conduct. And I have been here since 1994. So.
Hi, good morning. My name is Christopher Carney. I'm a distinguished professor and chair of the psychology department in the College of Liberal Arts. And so I have multiple roles as an academic and administrative faculty member, both running research and teaching, as well as helping to run the department. I've been here since 1990. So I used to say that, and it didn't seem so long ago. Now I say it, and it seems like a long, long time ago, but yeah, so 31 years.
Hello, my name is John Starkey. Currently, I serve as a senior academic advisor for Lee Business School. I am part of administrative faculty. I actually started at UNLV in 2005 as a student worker and student, and I've been working here ever since. Ultimately got my bachelor's degree in marketing and then my master's in education, and then started working professionally for UNLV in 2012.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a good rainy day. I am Harmon Stephan, and I am an associate professor in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering and Construction. And my role currently is in the running of the department is as an undergraduate coordinator. And I came to UNLV in 2007 as a postdoctoral researcher. And then in 2011, I joined the faculty.
Dr. Vo.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tina Vo. I am an assistant professor in teaching and learning. I specialize in science education, and my bench and field work was in geology, hydrology things. I've been at UNLV for, I'm going on my 4th year now. I got here in 2018, and I have the very traditional assistant professor 60-20-20, living in the world, doing my research, trying to get tenure. That whole brass ring still going strong in me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm going to start posing my questions to these illustrious faculty members. And as those of you in the audience have questions, if you're online, you can put them in the chat and then I will call on you. And if you're in the room, give me an eyeball, give me a hand, and I'll call on you from here. So I will stop sharing so we can just see one another, big picture. And we'll start with Tina, and then we'll pass the mic back this way. So my first question for you all is, how would you describe the campus culture at UNLV? And what's something you think is unique about working here at UNLV?
I think campus culture is such an interesting idea, right? Like it comes from areas of what is community and how do we get community, and how easily that happens. And I think it is whatever you put into it. I've invested a lot of time, like I believe in aggressive friendship because I would have never survived my PhD without really strong cohorts of other like-minded grad students at that point, pushing me to be the best version of myself. So I've tried really hard to find like the pockets of my people, and I found them, but only because I was looking. UNLV serves such a diverse, beautiful population of like students and like even other professors, right? Like this is where our research exists, but it also tends to be a little transient. I work very highly with teacher populations in CCSD, and in the United States, we have by far like 10% above the next highest level of transience in our student and teacher populations. And like things like that trickle into university culture. So you actively have to be trying to like make that culture and community work for you constantly. It's not quite a hustle culture because people really do have good intentions, as long as you are also putting good intentions out there. But it is absolutely an effort. And I think I think that's part of the uniqueness too. Everything I'm interested in, I can find a person to work with. Every single opportunity I have ever wanted in my entire, like short of, I wonder if I could run an ice cream truck. And I think there'd be someone in the community who might help me be able to do that too. There's someone who wants to do this project with you. It's just about finding them and getting like a mutual agreement of support together about how to move your goals forward. So again, that networking piece, if you have an interesting idea, it could fly at UNLV. So I think that's a wonderful thing about us too.
Thank you. Right, so now we'll go Haroon and pass it on down.
Thank you. So I think I'll build upon what Tina has mentioned. My first impression about our culture is also collaboration. Over the last more than 10 years I've been here, I have always found somebody to collaborate with, and not just within my department or college, but across campus. And along with that, I would also like to mention that I look at our culture as a constructive culture and a positive culture. And the reason I say constructive, because people who have been here for more than 10 years, I think you can relate with me to say that we have seen UNLV grow in all aspects. And that's what, to me, our constructive culture. We have grown our diverse population. We have grown our research and attained the level of R1. And within the university, we are also growing our infrastructure. So all of those things tell me that we are a constructive culture. And the positive, because that's probably more on a personal note, I have never had any problem solving my problems. So whenever I run into a problem, which we all do, I would always find some colleague to give me a little boost or give me the right path. And eventually I'll be able to find my path and solve my problems from within, which is a great part of our culture. And the unique thing I find about our culture is our diversity, which I already mentioned. I think with our diverse backgrounds, our differences, we bring different schools of thought and different ways of doing things to the table. And that diversity of solutions actually helps us find the most optimal and most relevant solution that meets everybody's needs.
Yeah, thank you. I would also describe us, obviously, as very diverse. I mean, we're constantly touting about it, right? When I think about our culture, I think about it from several different perspectives, because I was a student here as an undergrad, and then I was a graduate student, and now I'm pro staff. And when I was a student here, I did not feel that the university did a good service to its students in regards to getting students to collaborate with each other. Now, that was early 2000s. I've seen that drastically change over the years. And because we have continued to become more diverse, it has become our strength. And it does encourage us to collaborate, just as he was saying, in a very optimal way. When I think about campus culture now and what I'm seeing day in and day out working with students, I adore walking into my classroom and seeing visually how different everybody looks. I adore that. And then when I am working with these students, trying to pull out of them their ideas and their thoughts about how they can make an impact at UNLV in regards to their future and on campus, I always see students having epiphanies throughout all their different years here. And it's very fun to watch, because even though diversity is one of our biggest strengths, it sometimes also does make it difficult to collaborate. So it's a balance, and that's something we're always striving to work for, that balance of all these different perspectives and how we can find one great answer. as far as something I think that's unique about working at UNLV is our shared governance model. We definitely have a very unique shared governance model, and we are always trying to include people to make sure that their voices are heard at all levels. And if you don't ever feel that, or if you're not noticing that, I encourage you to seek it out, because we want you involved in shared governance, very much so. And I do think that is unique, and that's continuing to make UNLV a lot better.
I guess when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking about more along the sense of community and sort of the culture and the vibe at UNLV. And so I was thinking about, how my own experiences over the last few decades, and I've always found the university to be a pretty welcoming and supportive kind of place. It's the kind of place where, even though we're a large university, a large urban university, and our one university, it's not an overwhelming campus. It's not an overwhelming campus geographically or personnel wise. If you're here long enough, you get to meet sort of the key people, a lot of the people on campus. And as was mentioned, if you don't know the answer to the question, usually you end up knowing who to ask who does have the answer to the question, which I think is important. So I've always found it to be supportive in that respect. I think it's a very team-oriented kind of campus as well. I mean, most of the units that I've dealt with, and our unit in particular, when we're addressing and solving problems, it's not one person doing it. It's really a collective kind of effort. So for example, I work pretty closely with our front office staff on solving problems. We have a variety of committees in our department that solve problems. I work closely with the dean's office. They work closely with the vice provost's offices. And I've gotten to see that more from a bird's eye view perspective over the years, but it's clear that there's a lot more focus on trying to solve problems than trying to shunt them aside, which I've always appreciated. And the other thing that I think is important with respect to that is I always have felt that it's a family-friendly campus. I know a lot of colleagues at R1 institutions that are pretty miserable because they're either being weeded out or family-oriented kind of activities are shunted aside in favor of publications and grants and things like that. And certainly that's still important here. But at the same time, I have always felt like the policies here and the general attitude and approach toward family values and especially faculty members with young children has always been positive. My wife and I have raised 2 kids here. I did it during my, tenure and associate years. And, I really appreciated the flexibility that went along with that. I have a lot of young faculty with young children now, and they've pursued different leave policies, either intermittent or more permanent, or flexible work schedules that we've worked with them on. I've really always sort of appreciated that aspect of campus culture. So even though we're an R1 institution, we're not a cutthroat institution, which I've really appreciated. I'm sure there's a certain degree of politics involved in different academic units, but by and large, I haven't seen that all that much myself. I generally see people that are more willing to sort of put aside their individual interests and do pursue more of the collective interests when they can. And I've always appreciated that.
I definitely agree with what my colleagues have said. And I will add that I feel like UNLV is a place that is striving, still striving for excellence. It's not a place when you work here that we feel like we've arrived. And I think this is a good thing because I feel like innovation is well received. New ideas are welcomed. And as a newer university, I feel like we're not bound by some of the traditions, other institutions that I've worked for, which I think is all very positive. And makes it a wonderful place to work, especially when you want to create something new. I have found so much support on the UNLV campus for doing those things and improving what we do. So I think that's very satisfying when you can look back and seeing how you've helped contribute to these innovations over the years. The other thing that stands out to me also is that when I first came here, to be honest, I felt like it was a bit siloed between the academic side of the house and like student affairs and some of the other places. I really feel like over the last decade that has changed significantly and for the better. I think we've learned that there's important collaborations that we have and we can really help each other and add to, your work and success. And I really believe the pandemic honestly it was really good before, but I think that just super emphasized that all the workarounds that needed to happen to, change everything, to offering so many of the classes online, to offering all the services that we offer for students and faculty and staff to support them online, just required an immense amount of collaboration to pull off. And so I think we all should pat ourselves on the back for that.
Okay, well, thank you all. Next question is especially for the new folks. What is something that you wish you knew your first year here? And are there groups or organizations you would really recommend new folks get involved in? We'll just pass the mic back down again. Start with you, Jamie.
Well, this is my 28th year, but I think the lesson I learned is just how important it is to form connections and work with others. So I've learned over the years that when we were collaborating people, I've tried to help solve their issues. It's amazing how a few years later, they will be involved in helping me work on my goals and issues. So I enjoy that. I think it makes it very rewarding to have that kind of teamwork and feel the support that you feel for each other. Just a quick story is the Recreation and Wellness Center that we're in, prior to that, the Health Center and Counseling Center, we were all spread out over campus and undersized facilities, so I had been talking on the importance of building a building where we could integrate and use like a true wellness model, pulling all the various offices together. And it was a colleague who knew what my vision and concern was. It actually was in a meeting at the right time, and shared that and really opened the door to, our current Student Recreation and Wellness Center, which I think has been really welcomed by everyone on the campus community. So the last thing, which is really short, I'll put in there is just the retirement plan. I don't think I really appreciated how exceptional our retirement plan is. But now I'm getting much older and I look back and I'm like, wow, to have a plan where there's a 15.5% match, where you have immediate vesting and the opportunity to choose your own investments. So if you're new at UNLV, really maximize that, because you're not going to find that other places.
Yeah, I would definitely reinforce what Jamie just said with respect to the retirement thing. When I first came here, I went to HR and they said, what kind of distribution do you want? I said, I don't know. And they said, why don't you just make it diverse? I said, fine. And they made it a diverse portfolio, and it's really taken off. But I've learned over the years to really take advantage of a lot of the financial consultants that are available on campus. It's not just the retirement plan, but it's things like insurance and health-oriented kinds of plans, and putting away for college for your kids and things like that. So those kind of things I would definitely take advantage of, especially as you're young and you're building wealth. The things that I kind of wish I knew a little bit more in addition to that when I first started was sort of about the administrative and the research structures on campus. When you're sort of starting out, you don't have a bird's eye view of how the different components of administration, different components of the research infrastructure on campus sort of work together or don't work together to get what you need. So it took me years, for example, to realize that if something came out of the provost's office, what that really meant, it was coming out of one of the vice provost's offices, right? It's those kind of nuances that I didn't really have for a long period of time. A lot of times faculty members don't realize that the major role of deans is to sort of advocate to the central administration for different kinds of resources, and utilizing the chair and the dean structure and the central administration roles in that is important. But also being really well aware of the research infrastructure with respect to OSP, IRB, Workday, academic policy, planning and construction, facilities. There's a lot of different kind of moving parts to having research projects and understanding how a lot of those things kind of have to work together, and that they don't always have the same common language, but utilizing the administrative structure on campus to sort of figure out solutions to that is going to be very important. So just taking a few days just to sort of make yourself really aware of sort of what those different departments do and what those different units are about and how they contribute to the research architecture on campus, I think is very important.
Something that I was thinking about when everybody was speaking, what's something you wish you knew in your first year here? I honestly wish I knew how important it was to show appreciation to other colleagues. Often you will see in UNLV today, the email we receive Monday through Friday, you will see people that have been honored, people that have been published, people that have won awards. And as you start working here and you start collaborating with other units and you start meeting those people and you recognize their names, the appreciation you can show them by just sending them a quick email and saying, hey, congratulations on this project or this success story, and how beneficial that can be for your own future, especially in regards to networking. And, you know, I also had no idea that the first year here, what Maryland Parkway would become. I'm so much happier about what Maryland Parkway has become. Being a student here in 2005 to what I'm seeing today is just absolutely beautiful. And it's so beneficial for our students to have that dynamic across the street area. And when I'm thinking about new faculty, new staff, and how they can become more involved, again, I encourage everybody to seek out how you can participate in shared governance, but also it's the same thing I tell my students. Read every single email you receive. Read every single email you receive. And I know that can be frustrating. A lot of people believe a lot of it's junk. But even when you sign up for things like the NSHE system emails, you actually have to sign up and subscribe to those. And what you learn from those kind of emails about what's going on top level at our university and within the state gives you an idea of where our future is heading. So just in the past few years, and I've been here, you know, as professionally for a decade, but just in the past few years, when I started subscribing to those NSHE emails, I became very enlightened about what actually is going on in Nevada in regards to education overall. So just continuing to collaborate, show your colleagues appreciation, seek out shared governance opportunities, and honestly, just read your emails. There's so many opportunities for involvement within those emails that can lead to positive impacts for your future.
I think in my case, I'm also looking back and putting myself in the first year and thinking, what would I like to know? And I think I can resonate with all of the previous responses, particularly Chris's response about the structure and process, how university works. After graduating with a PhD, I knew how to complete a PhD dissertation, and that was about it. And maybe I learned how to write a resume. But after coming here, I think something that I have learned along the way, but it would be helpful to pay a little bit more attention in the first year, is that what are all of these units on campus and what are their roles, as has already been mentioned, and how the process works. For example, how do I hire a graduate student? What is our accounting system and how those salaries are paid and how much money? It took me a long time to figure out, oh, I need to, when I'm writing proposal, I should write in there that insurance should be paid from the proposal. And I always ran short of money because I didn't put it in there. Little things, but they matter. And something else, especially for our new faculty, is that it's okay to say no. I felt pressured that if my chair asked me for something or a senior faculty wanted me to collaborate, I was obligated to say yes and be part of that. But you should have your own strategic plan for your next 5 years, at least, you know, when you're going to apply for your tenure, and make sure that you see if what is being offered by a senior faculty or your chair aligns with your strategic plan. And if it doesn't align with your strategic plan, it's okay to politely say no and explain that you have, you know, other things that are on a higher priority in your list. And what I would recommend for our new faculty, something I really value myself, are all of these opportunities that keep coming on campus for your personal growth. I have greatly benefited from these faculty mentorship programs, writing group to improve your capacity to improve your capacity as well as your productivity for publications, research, funding, finding opportunities and workshops, and proposal writing workshops. I could name so many. Library has so many institutions that they offer. And some of these are actually also, they come with some compensation for your time as well. So it's not just learning, but you can get some financial benefit as well. So I would highly encourage you to keep your eyes open, read all the emails, because that's where this information is advertised. And as much as you can, take advantage of those opportunities that come along for your professional and personal growth.
Okay, Tina.
Wow. I'm learning some things just by listening to this panel myself. I would echo a lot of everything that was said. I literally made an oh no face when people kept saying read your emails, because I am one of those, right? Like they pile up and they just like live there, and then now you have 400 like that little icon, and it makes you a little bit, yeah, all of those things. But it's good, right? Information is always useful. A couple like on the bare bones survival tips. Email filters. I actually block out time. Like, when am I going to actually like spend the time going through my emails? And that is literally twice a week, unless they get a certain rating in my filters. Is that like all of the university communications, the NSHE communications, that's a Monday, Wednesday activity for me. Like the end of my day for an hour a piece, just trying to filter through all of that information. Because I'm sure these gentlemen have much better like ability to monitor their own time. I can get sucked in. I can lose like 3 hours later. I'm like, did I just answer 2 emails? What happened? Right? Like, but I recognize all of our lives are very different. So I try to budget my time for those sorts of things. In your first year, it's great to have all of this information. You might not have the schema to hook it on somewhere. So if you read something, it just kind of gets lost in there. Someone mentions it like 3 days too late and you're like, oh, I knew that. I knew that. So I have a different, like, just recommendation. You need a person in this area that you can ask. Like, just-in-time learning is a thing. And it should be a conversation that you have. And it shouldn't just be one person. That's too overwhelming. But I actively make a choice to try to take my budget and finance people in our college out to coffee. Like just once every 2 weeks, we take a walk to Starbucks. I ask them all of the weird questions I need. They know I'm invested in like growing and learning. They give me the weird tips I need at any given time. And like we build that community that way, if that makes sense. So now I have a person where if I need something, and if you're friendly enough, they just tell you the opportunities they think might be useful to you. As a new faculty member, I just found I was overwhelmed until I had found those people that could answer my questions for me. And they gave me the structure and have been building my capacity to engage in like the larger university emails. Because much like what was just said, like I graduated from my PhD, I was very sure I knew how to publish. I was really sure I could make a grant perform, but I had very little clue how to get there. I now am like I've written and have tons of grants and I've published tons of things, but those are all progressions of like my grad student life. I'm getting involved in infrastructure now. I'm getting involved in this wonderful faculty program. I would like, star these emails. These are really useful. Like you get to see the different perspectives, the different activities. Yes, I think this is a wonderful place to start if you had capacity for one thing. One grouping of emails that you should pay particular attention to, just because it will get you used to the UNLV area. I love the idea of writing your own story. I'm a woman, I'm reasonably young, I'm just new to my apartment. Saying no is like terrifying to me. But when I have the moment to say, no, I can't do this service because I'm already serving on my national committee for like, I'm on my national publications committee. I'm the Strand coordinator for this conference. Do you really think that this service, like, that's a conversation in which I can slowly work my way to know about serving on departmental service. So make sure that you do have a clear vision of your own trajectory. that will give you reason. And I know, like, we shouldn't have to give reasons why we say no to things, but in the reality of a world where these people are good people, but they will vote on me, like, in the future, right? Having the reasonable, like, trajectory, right? No one can say, oh, national service isn't as important as departmental service. Those things really help in moving that negotiation forward, I think. Yeah, like, but everything that was said is absolutely correct. When and if you have the capacity for them. Yes, that's what I have.
Awesome. I have to add a couple of things, just real quick. So what Jamie said about the Student Recreation and Wellness Center, if you haven't been there yet, new people, you should go. I'm getting nods up here. The FAST Center there is fantastic. One of my favorite places on campus because they are so nice and provide quick healthcare. The other thing, Chris mentioned research administration, and Tina and Harun also mentioned like trying to figure out the money parts of that and the research infrastructure. So October 22nd, that's our new faculty welcome series event. We're going to have folks from the research office here to sort of step you through that. So they're very important people to meet and know. And so join us on October 22nd for that, because that'll give you a leg up on figuring out research infrastructure and funding, that sort of thing. And Sunday night faculty center newsletter. Make that one of your 2 reads, because that's where you're going to find out about this stuff. One last thing, the National Center for Faculty Development and Diversity. I'll put the link in the chat. NCFDD, we have an institutional membership with them, and they have great workshops about coming up with your own strategic plan, how to say no, and they even have advice on forming a no committee. You know, the people that you run things by who tell you like, yeah, you can do that this year, like you got to tell them no about this. So I'm going to point you all towards NCFDD. All right. Next question for you all, and we're going to start with Tina again, is what has been most challenging for you so far as a faculty member at UNLV?
Can you repeat that one more time, please, Melissa?
You bet. What has been most challenging for you so far as a faculty member?
Friendship. I think we get often wrapped up, like, don't get me started about making adult friends. But I think we often get wrapped up in our research and our grants and our projects, and we forget like what it means to build space for ourselves. And the people that we really value in this world. And like, obviously, if you are lucky enough to have a partner, like they're always in your general sphere, ideally, unless you have a 2-body problem, that's a whole different slew of issues. But I think a challenge for me is like, what does it mean to have and maintain friendships? And that takes a lot of different forms. For example, I work with a crazy ton of undergrads. Like, we have to acknowledge that COVID has had a really big impact on their lives. I can't remember who's in charge of the counseling center, but I literally have a stack of your cards in my office. And I give them to students because right now I am averaging like 2 students a week coming into my office. They don't want to talk about class. They want to talk about like life things. And I told them that's what office hours are for. Like, so we can get to know each other and create those relationships, but they are not doing well. But the only way I can be there and have capacity for their needs and like their feelings is by making sure that I am centered as a person and I'm super solid. So what does it mean to like build in that work-life balance? I'm really terrified every time I put that out of the office thing in my email, and I just have to grow and figure out like, how do I not care about these things? But it's hard. It's just really hard because if you're not there, what happens? So like, I think that's probably my biggest current challenge.
It's a big one.
Yes, that indeed is a big one. I think we can all relate to that. And I'm looking back again to see what are the challenges I faced. And there are many challenges. There are many challenges that came along the way. And for most of those challenges, there was help. There was help available. So I'm going to share with you one of the deepest challenges, which was more of a personal struggle, and it still is an ongoing struggle. And I think Tina kind of mentioned that too, is the balance, life balance. I am important, my family is important, my friends are important, my students are important, my research is important. This university is important to me. But how do I balance all of these things? And what ends up happening when we are doing your PhD, and I think again, maybe it's only me or maybe all of you can relate to that, that we do succeed, but at the same time, we also develop maybe this sickness or illness. We have to recover from our PhD too. And right when we get into our faculty position, we are still thinking like the way we were thinking as a PhD student. So from that point, we have to find our own niche. And we hear that word again and again, that you need to find your own niche. And it takes time. I came from a very diverse background, multiple degrees in different directions. So it took me even longer to figure out who am I and what really I should focus on. And in this whole setup, finding the right balance of my time usage was the biggest struggle for me. I had that sense, I mean, it's a cliche that I don't have time, but it took me a long time to realize that I have all the time. It's my time and it's my choice how I use it. So now I don't say that anymore, and I do have a lot of time, but it has taken me a long time to overcome that challenge, that I don't have to prioritize anything. I just have to find what my next action is. And it's a very deep for me to know what my next action is, instead of saying, what do I need to prioritize? Priorities are already there and they evolve with your life. But what you really need to find is, what is the next action that you need to take? And if in your to-do list, you have just the words, proposal, if you have words, paper, they don't mean anything. They must be associated with an action verb. Complete is again a vague word. The next step should be really go online and download this paper, read the paper, write one paragraph on this topic. So actions is what should be prioritized in your time management system. Or I don't think you can really manage time. You just have all the time you want. So that was my challenge. And I think in that challenge, I also kind of shared how I have overcome that challenge, and I hope it helps you.
What has been the most challenging? You know, it's funny because what I said earlier was everybody should be checking their emails. That's also been one of the most challenging things due to all the emails. But still, I highly recommend that. It's hard not to think about COVID, as you know, Tina was talking about. It's hard not to think about this in the context of COVID. I'm trying to remember, you know, and it's challenging me to try to remember pre-COVID what my issues were, because they've so drastically changed. I would say overall, when I'm thinking about what has been the most challenging part of being an administrative faculty member at UNLV, it's always remembering and convincing all of your colleagues as well that we are here for students. Students are first. Now, obviously, faculty members have their research, they have teaching, they have service. Administrative faculty in the front line are busy, busy, busy working with all the students on figuring out how to interpret all the UNLV communication, especially during COVID. But it's exhausting when you're trying to always think of students first, even though that's why we all are here. And I always try to remind all of my teammates, all of the people under me, all of the people above me, that if we are not making our decisions based on what's best for students, why are we even here? What are we doing? So I'm always trying to bring that in the front forth of people's minds, because I want everybody to remember that's who we are here for and that's who we care about. Some of the other challenging things, as an administrative faculty member, being on the front line, working with students day in, day out. I also teach, but I also advise. I meet with 12 to 16 students a day individually. And, through COVID, hearing all of their problems has taken a toll on a lot of the frontline members or the frontline staff members. So we have been inundated with hearing other people's problems for a long, long time. And it has been hard for us, not to avoid from bringing that home. And obviously, left and right, I'm referring students to the Wellness Center to work with our amazing counselors over there. And when you're trying to think about students first, you're also trying to think about what was previously mentioned, your work-life balance, and trying to achieve that in time during a pandemic has been very difficult. But I always say, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm intentionally repetitive, we are here for students. Our decisions need to be made thinking of students first.
So as I get older and crankier, I tend to think of these issues more systemically and historically, even I guess philosophically, administratively. When I first came here in the early 90s, we were a teaching institution that was striving to be a research institution. So they hired people like me to do research, but there was a lot of challenges in terms of getting approval for things that they had never seen before. I wanted to start a clinic. I wanted to do treatment outcome kind of things. I needed a doctoral program. I needed certain grant submissions, and the university infrastructure just wasn't really up to those challenges. It just took a long time to sort of meet those needs, but it eventually did. Eventually the ship of state got to that point. Then we got R1 status. But the problem is we're an R1 institution that's funded at an R2 level. So we've got, limited state legislature funds and low student tuition. Those, the latter is good. But the problem is you still have a lot of structural barriers to things like hiring new faculty, and especially diverse faculty, because the starting salaries are fairly limited and because we don't get permission to conduct our searches until well into the fall semester after a lot of candidates have been snapped up earlier in the semester. So there's just a lot of there's a lot of built-in, baked-in structural barriers to different kinds of things. Now, the good news with all of that is that there's a lot of motivated people on campus, chairs and associate deans for research especially, who are very motivated to find creative workaround solutions to those kinds of things. So I had a faculty member in my office last week. This is just kind of a nuts and bolts thing. The buyout language from his granting agency doesn't match up with the buyout language of UNLV. Now that is an issue, a problem that probably should have been solved many years ago, but it's one of those kind of structural things that still exists. But we were able to find a creative workaround solution to it. And that's what I would encourage people to do, is that even though there's sort of these still striving kind of aspects of the university, there are a lot of sort of in-betweens and nuances and creative kind of things that can be done to solve problems. It's a matter of really leaning on the people that have been here a long period of time, who are really familiar with the nuances of policy, who have that institutional knowledge, and really lean on them to come up with creative solutions. And that's generally what people will do. But that's sort of been the most challenging aspect for me, is that we're always sort of striving for the next step, but that the resources and the other kind of infrastructure is just kind of lagging a little bit. Now we're in a situation where we are R1, but we're kind of hanging out for dear life. And I'm hoping we can stay there. And I think we'll eventually get to that point, but it's getting there that can be a little bit challenging.
I'm gonna say the biggest thing, the challenge I've faced in all my years here is really burnout. And as a healthcare provider, I'm a psychologist, and I also work with a lot of the healthcare staff and student wellness. I mean, it was overwhelming before the pandemic, but the pandemic just like supercharged everything that we had on our plate. And I appreciate that we're in a place to really help and reach out and support, the campus community and our students, which is great, but it's really been overwhelming, just to be honest. And I have a deep, deep appreciation for all the staff, because, we've never closed. Our door has been open since the first day of the pandemic. So dealing with burnout, it's on two levels. It's one for my staff. What can I do for them to help them, to make sure that they're getting the rest they need, to make sure that we're pacing ourselves, even though it's a crisis situation. So I know there's many people on campus that feel exactly the same way. So I strongly encourage you to take care of yourself. You need to set boundaries to the extent you need to set. You need to prioritize focusing on yourself, especially if you're the type of person that tends to put other person's priorities and needs before your own. I also think it's a time to invest yourself in others. I think the research shows the more that you feel like you can help others, you actually get a big lift out of that. It increases your happiness and your ability to keep on doing what you're doing. So a lot of efforts put into place to keeping the staff focused. And a big part of it is just appreciating the impact we have on students' lives. So I've talked to many people who felt burnout and they couldn't see the clear impact from the job they did. But at UNLV, it's so clear the difference that we can make in students' lives, other faculty members' lives, to impact them in such positive ways. It's life-changing, for our students. And I think it's important that we remind ourselves of that and the contribution that we make. And on a personal level, I felt it very much myself too, just how to deal with that. And as others have said, I think it's important to take time off. I think it's important to say no sometimes when you're doing it. And I think it's okay to ask for help. And sometimes it's challenging to do that. But this pandemic has been overwhelming, and it's not just our work, right? It's our home life, it's our community, it's our family, and all the responsibilities and everything that we're bearing. So that's been a huge challenge.
Thank you all so much for your frankness and your advice about challenges. That's really helpful. My last question for everyone is, what is the best thing, number one thing about working at UNLV? And once we have your responses, then we'll open it up to the audience for their questions. So we'll start with you, Jamie.
Okay. I think the best thing about UNLV is the chance to work with other talented people who share my passions. So obviously I'm all about healthcare, health and mental health and improving that. So I just get such a boost out of synergy that can come when you can work with others and like-minded individuals, and wholeheartedly throw yourselves into doing what can we do to improve the health and well-being of the campus community that we have here. I just feel like that's super rewarding and I get a lot out of it. So I think it's really the thing that I appreciate the most about a UNLV. And again, the UNLV is so open to new ideas. If it's reasonable and you can talk about how you would implement, you have a clear sense of the impact. I haven't had very positive support in doing it and also finding funds, let's be honest. So
We have the best jobs in the entire world. We have the best jobs in the entire world. There are so many people in the world, in our country, that struggle on a day-to-day basis, a week-to-week basis. We have jobs that allow us not only to satisfy all of our basic needs, but also allow us to pursue self-actualization. We can be creative. We have a lot of flexibility. We have a lot of autonomy. We can largely do what we want to do with our time. It's important not to lose sight of that and to be grateful for that, and to show that gratitude on a day-to-day basis. I think that's the best thing about working here, is that we do have the kind of institution that does foster a lot of autonomy, a lot of creativity, a lot of ability to sort of set your own agenda. I mean, there are certainly constraints and standards to meet and deadlines to meet, but it's important to always kind of keep in mind that overarching theme that we have the best jobs in the world, and to be grateful for that and to continue to pursue what we want to do is a real blessing.
Thinking about the best thing working at UNLV, I would say absolutely, undoubtedly, it is the fact that we are in Las Vegas, right by the airport and right by the Strip. And I say that, because we attract some of the best speakers in the hotel college, the business school, engineering. We attract some of the best speakers in the world. And literally, we have millionaires on our campus every week willing to speak with students, every single week. You don't get that at a lot of universities. Obviously, other universities have great speakers, but because people want to come to Las Vegas, especially pre-pandemic, because people want to come to Las Vegas, we have the ability to attract them to interact with our students. And I just find that as being a huge blessing based on how close we are to the Strip and the airport. And then in addition, the willingness of what was already said, the willingness of other departments and other units to collaborate. I often intentionally try to work with people that are not in my immediate staff in order to learn because I want to become better. And there is a huge willingness of mentors that are just all throughout this campus that are willing to help you grow and willing to help answer your questions and willing to collaborate with you. All you got to do is ask.
So I will also resonate that we have the best jobs in the world. And I think the best thing for me working at UNLV is the opportunities of personal growth and the freedoms that I have here. So I compare my job sometimes with other family members, other friends, and I can see the difference. The growth, UNLV culture has provided me opportunities pretty much to grow in all of my personal identities. And in all of the forms and shapes I come, I have grown here, which is the best thing for me. And in terms of freedom, I think I really cherish the academic freedom I have. And it also humbles me because I can pursue some unknown question that really is my curiosity. I can keep moving forward. People will, and taxpayers will pay money to help me do that. And I will have students who will come and help me achieve those goals, and I will help students achieve their goals. So that's the best thing for me. I really love that.
Okay, Tina.
Everything that was said. I love that if I want to, people leave me alone. The level of autonomy that I have compared to many of my peers in the field. Like, so I have friends at Tennessee, Montana, a slew in Chicago at all of those universities. Like, we compare notes. We have like assistant professor tea and like morning chat. And the amount that they get bothered to do things that are outside their scope and purview is insane. And here, when I want help, there are people I can find that will and want to help me. But like, I get left alone for the most part to like do what I care about and the job that we have trained a decade to do. Right? I mean, this is why we don't get like, when I think about the cost benefit analysis of I went to grad school and could not save for retirement for many years versus like, apparently we have a great retirement plan, right? It all equals out, like karmatically, it makes sense. But I love the ability to like just set my agenda and my time to continue my career how I want to continue my career. Also, something that should be mentioned, like something really unique to UNLV is the power of our undergraduate research community. I'm always like really shocked with how good our undergraduates are. And if you haven't tapped into that from like a research, like they are like rabid to get into good labs. And they are so wanting to learn and get experience. And if you can unpack the academic game even a little for them, like that will be a game changer in their lives. Like what everyone's been talking so much about students, it's just been in my head. We really need to be like leveraging this resource. I have 6 undergrads in my lab right now. 2 have published. That is insane. So that's the last pro tip. But yeah, I think UNLV is a really unique space. Like they really want this opportunity. Yeah, it's neat. I like it here.
Awesome. Well, you ask me, the best thing about UNLV is definitely the students. They're fantastic. I always love spending time with them, but also We have great faculty, as you can see. So let's give the panel a hand. Thank you. Open it up now to your questions. So if you are online and want to put one in the chat, I'll ask you to unmute. And our folks in person, if you have anything you want to pose to the panel, go ahead.
I'll ask a question. So my name's Nayeli Rico. I'm the resource coordinator for the undocumented student program. I just started this past September. And so I'm very new to UNLV. Previous to this position, I had graduated from Nevada State College, with a bachelor's in communication. So I'm just getting my feet wet in the professional realm. And so how do you combat imposter syndrome, and how do you like tell yourself that you belong and that your experiences in the past are valid in order to empower yourself to keep going in the field?
Anybody want to respond?
Well, that's a very, very deep question for me, because, and I think I would share that feeling with you as well, because I have been there. I'm still there in certain aspects of my life. And if we are lucky, we find a good mentor. They help us to actualize and realize our strengths, and that can help us kind of get or recover from that syndrome or imposter syndrome. But let's say if for some reason we don't find somebody to help us with that, then my suggestion would be just keep moving forward. If you feel that, if I feel I'm faking something, then I need to work on it. So I can always figure out a way to make it, from fake it to make it, and build my strength. And I'm pretty sure others can probably share more insightful, especially from the psychology point of view. But that's what I would say, that I hope, look for mentors, look for your peers who can help you with that, and or also look for some personal growth tutorials and guidance that can help improve that part.
I think that's good advice. I think it's also important to remember that imposter syndrome never really completely goes away. So having conversations with people, and especially about their own personal experiences with that, is important. So for example, I was here 24 years at the university before I became chair. I became chair of the department, and I suddenly realized all the things I didn't know. Right. And the learning curve was pretty steep. And I thought, well, it wouldn't be too bad. I've been here a long time. I kind of know a lot of people. I know the policies. There was still a lot. And there's still a lot I'm still learning in that respect. And I have a lot of younger faculty members who come in, they drift into my office, and we'll talk about their experiences in the department and what they're going through and that kind of thing. So it's just sort of important to realize that that's kind of a normal human experience in a lot of ways. All of our grad students have that experience. Our new faculty do, and I think even to some extent some of our older faculty. It's just a matter really of breaking down barriers by having conversations with people and being pretty vulnerable about it. It's important to say, look, this is kind of how I feel. I appreciate the question, because that's a hard question to ask. But just being able to talk about those kind of things and kind of breaking down what some of the barriers might be, to leading to the fact that you can be confident in what it is that you're doing. And a lot of times we, as from the psychology standpoint, we tend to focus a lot more on negative and loss than we do on positive and gain. And so, to have other people sort of remind you of the strengths that you have. And the fact is, you got the job over everybody else. You were picked for the job, so you belong in the job. That will help sort of validate the fact that you deserve to be here. But that's an ongoing process. It's not something that ends a week from now or a year from now. It's just sort of a lifelong kind of process. But again, just talking to people, especially those that have been around for a long period of time, who understand sort of the nuts and bolts of the hiring process and what goes through it that you probably don't know, right? The fact that there's a lot of screening, a lot of reviewing, and only the cream of the crop rises to the top to get hired. Those are the kind of things that help give you some perspective.
Like Tina has something to add. Please go ahead, Tina.
I do. Okay, so I don't believe I'm an adult like at least three times a week. I'm like, am I really a grown up at this point? Like I question whether like I had to figure out a dentist within the healthcare system, and I was just like, I can't. This is gonna break me. This is the hill I die on. And that's also like part of imposter syndrome, right? It's where our want to grow as a human intersects with our like self-confidence. You wouldn't be having imposter syndrome if you weren't actively trying to grow yourself, if you weren't like taking on a new challenge, if you weren't stretching, and that's amazing. So I hope you recognize that. I can't see you, but I hope you recognize that. Like that is brilliant. And so many people don't, right? Like there are so many people who don't take that chance, who don't take that adventure, who will never feel imposter syndrome in their life because they don't dare to try something new. You're doing that. And that's super exciting. And I think it's one of those things, like you fake it till you make it. Like that's half of it, right? That's not like solid reasoning, but it's what's gotten me through. It's what got me through a PhD program. Never take yourself too seriously, and know that if any person gives you trouble about this or makes you feel less than you, then they aren't worth your time. Like, I think there's a real like shame culture sometimes about not knowing things. We are an acronym culture. And I'm not above saying, nope, that's an acronym. Nope, I don't know what that means. Someone help me. I need an adult. There's just too much information now. And as soon as like you can internalize that and just like ask for help all the time. I ask for help all of the time, and it only made me more successful. I talked to like 3 different program officers when I turn in a grant. I am constantly in OSP's ear when I'm like, is this right? What do you think about this language? Is NIH gonna hate me? Right? Because I just own that I don't know these things. And that's how I got rid of my imposter syndrome, where I leaned into, I need help. And I'm very clear about what my expectations are. Also, collect little pieces of evidence of your competence. And that's pretty cool, right? Like I did this. It goes into I make my tenure folder every year. So I've named it. Sometimes I put a cute meme in there, but it is evidence that I did a thing. And when you look back at the folder, you have evidence of how competent and amazing you are, right? And it can be simple things like I figured out how this system works. Like paying students is actually really hard. Like I felt really happy after it went into my folder, like, yay, kudos to me. And that just accumulates over time. So I don't know if any of those tips work. That's how I've dealt with this, but I still, like, am I an adult? I have to go fix my car. I have no idea how to fix my car now. What?
And if I could add quickly, we have, and I'm not going to mention their name or department, but we have an outstanding administrative faculty member that earned her degree from the University of Phoenix. And that is often looked at as a lesser than degree by many people. And when she speaks to other people, and when I hear her speak to units in public, and when I see her on Zoom, which is what I've mostly been seeing her doing for the past year and a half, she always brings up that she has a degree from the University of Phoenix. And then she shows anybody that thinks less of her because of that, how awesome she is with everything she says immediately following. So there's easy ways that you can just show that you are the best.
Good advice. We have another question that has come up from Caleb. What do we have suggestions specific to new part-time instructors? And one thing I'll say about that is we have a part-time instructor mentoring group, Caleb. So check that out. Their next meeting is actually Monday, 4 p.m. And Daniel Ogletree, who's an art instructor, is leading that group. And that's a nice way to get connected, meet folks, learn more about resources, because as you've heard, there are just so many resources. Like, how do you sort of navigate what's available for students, what's available for faculty? So that's one way, is getting connected. Tina says faculty center for the win, yes. Anybody else want to chime in on part-time instructor resources?
I do. Sorry, I work with our PTIs quite a bit. I find that there's sometimes like not at our university, but there are other places where there's like negative, like one of my friends told me like he never has to worry about his teaching scores on his tenure and evaluation. Like you have to have above the medium because their PTIs will always, I'm like, that's a poor life perspective. There are faculty who like, I adore our PTIs. Like I go to the same PTIs again and again because they're amazing teachers. They're amazing resources for my students to have. Find those allies in your department. And if you need a friend, I'll be like anyone in this room, like I'll be a friend. But there's someone in your department who values the work and the dedication that you bring, and make sure that they are your, like, they know, hey, I'm here, these are my feelings, and they will either reassure you or like openly admit, yeah, no, our department's like having some feelings right now about our PTIs, like, right? But getting that ally within the space that you teach is super important, especially because we think of education obviously has a hierarchy. And we think about that, we need to protect our most vulnerable people in our own community as we like search into the community, right? So make sure that there are people above you that have your back or willing to tell you how it is. Yeah, aggressive friendship. That's my personal policy on all things.
Melissa, it might be good for the PTI thing, because I don't know if it's true this year, if we've done that calculation yet, but last year, PTIs impacted more students than any other faculty group.
That's correct.
Because there were more, if you look at the number of students who took a class taught by PTI, as opposed to any other faculty members, there were more students in a class taught by PTI than any other faculty member. So that's always a little bit helpful to know if you're looking for how much of an impact can the PTI have. They have a huge impact.
And if you're looking for support, really do come to the Faculty Center. We're happy to connect you with resources. And we'll be offering a PTI Professional Development Day in January again this year.
Can I add one more thing about PTIs? Because I do, like, I have like 3 good friends that are in this position. You get to ask what these positions do for you too, right? Like having resources is great. What does it do to your career goals and trajectories? I have one PTI who, she's 70. She's like, I just want to do this. It's a nice supplement. Like that's all she wants to do, and that's fine. But there are like a couple younger PTIs, and like, okay, so how do we get the department to fund you towards a conference? Like, what would that mean? Like, could we cobble together some of these things, or what kind of resources do you need to apply for funding for your professional development? Like, I think those are conversations. Again, finding one faculty member in the department that can help you, the faculty center can help you. How do you have those conversations to continue your career goals? Like, how do you get involved in research? Let's say you got your degree and you're PTIing for now, but you do want to apply for that, 10-year track someday. What kind of research opportunities are there, like, that you could use your class for? Or does that make sense? Like, those are the conversations that need to be had to like help you.
Yeah, and if I could just add too, I am technically a PTI despite being a full-time administrative faculty member. I teach 2 classes, and anytime something has ever been posted about me, for example, in UNLV today, an honor or an accomplishment, it is always because of my work as a PTI, and it is rarely because of my work as an administrative faculty member, because of the impact you can have on your students and what you can do with them, how you can collaborate with them, and how you can do something impactful that is noticeable to show even the public. So the PTIs have just as much of a capability of making an impact as anybody else.
We've got kudos coming in from Vice Provost Janet Dufek. Thank you, Janet, for joining us. She says, thank you, panel. Well done. You want to chime in?
Do I want to chime in? I thought this was an excellent session. And as I said, panel, great job. New faculty, welcome. I've been here the whole time, but I've just kind of been listening. Melissa and the Faculty Center have a lot of services and events for you to support you in your success. If there are other questions or services you would like us to see provide for you to allow you to achieve success, let us know. Let Melissa know. Feel free to reach out to me. For those of you, I missed how Melissa may have introduced me because I was busy typing about the verb PTI as a verb. I kind of like that, Matthew. I PTI'd. I didn't know that. Yeah. I am the, what am I? The Vice Provost for Faculty Affairs. So anything faculty, any needs you have, any problems that you have in your environment, feel free to reach out to me. And because we're here to foster your success. I do have to dash to my next meeting, but thanks for Melissa for allowing me a chance to welcome our new faculty. And I look forward to seeing you later on the semester, the next session, certainly as there are additional opportunities for you to participate in faculty center events. I encourage you to do so, and I hope to see you at the next one. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think with that, we will wrap up. Time for lunch. And thank you all so much for joining us. I really do hope to see you again soon, and have a great weekend. Bye.